Welcome to the Questionistas podcast. I'm Thomas. I'll be running a solo episode today. And today we're going to be looking at the question, what got Thomas into all of this? So in case it hasn't been clear by this point, I'm kind of the force that got us started and getting us into doing this. And we're going to go into what got me involved, what got me into this as an idea. Quick disclaimer, this is for education and entertainment purposes. If you need help, please see a professional. We're not experts. We do not give medical advice. Take our words with a gallon of salt. First off, I am nervous because I'm doing this by myself. I am feeling that fear rising up in me. Ooh, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. And to be honest, that's one of the main points of my journey of getting to here, is that fear of wanting to get this information out to people, but being terrified to move forward. And this discomfort with making sure that I'm doing it right. But before I get into that, I got to talk about my own journey with confidence and absolutism. So I have a personality that tries to latch onto specific ideas as absolutes that I can lean on. It can be quite a struggle for me to have nuance. Growing up, my mom could tell you that something along the lines of, Thomas, you can't make everyone do what's right. And that little turd that I was, I thought I knew what was right. So there was a long time I acted very confident about stuff. But looking back, I learned that it was probably because I was so afraid of uncertainty. A universe that I couldn't or didn't understand was so terrifying on a primal level that I latched on to absolutism. And I did a lot of that through my religion. I took the things that I was taught, which, in my defense, a lot of it is phrased in absolutist language. And I took it as the divine mandate, absolutist nature of the universe. But first off, I kept butting heads with reality. I think that example of when I was a kid is a good start. My mom saw that I was absolutist and liked correcting people. Mom, on the other hand, she is not absolutist. She has a pretty open mind. And I'm glad that I had that example, because without it, I don't know if I would have had the option in my head of a different way. But I kept running into reality. For example, I would argue with people and they would argue back. What? But I'm right. I served a Mormon mission, and I had a situation where I was getting mad at one of the missionaries that I was in charge of because he was doing things that didn't follow the standards, and he almost ran away because I was so blunt and so rude. Looking back, I notice, wow, that didn't work at all. Not only that, but my absolutist ideas were consistently causing me suffering because they didn't work with reality. I had ideas about addiction and about how the brain works, that when I would fail to meet my expectations, I just hated myself. And I thought, Thomas, you're choosing to be a piece of shit. Oops. Are we going to mark this as explicit? Maybe this episode is. Oh well. And I would continue to have problems. And again, I'm going to apologize maybe one or two more times. I'm a little nervous. My brain is a little scared. And my words are going to be a little bit messy. One thing that I have, and this could be a sign of some ism, maybe a bit of obsessive compulsive or bipolar or ADD or ADHD or autism, but my brain constantly rewrites my sentences as I'm talking. So if I'm pausing, that might be because I'm terrified of saying the wrong thing and rewriting it as I say it. Now, I got to this point where reality kept bumping into me against my beliefs, showing that my absolutist beliefs were either completely or partially incorrect. And this was about 10 years ago. I came to the conclusion I don't want to believe anything unless I have a really good reason to. So every time I was looking at my beliefs, and I would ask, where did this belief come from? Not why is this belief true? Because that will kick in the justifying part of your brain, the lawyer you have inside, or the public relations official, whose job is just to justify and explain what you're doing. That doesn't actually show where things came from. I essentially wanted to answer the question, what is truth and how do I know it? I didn't know this at the time, but that question includes a whole bunch of assumptions about the nature of truth, the nature of knowing, the nature of the universe itself. So I was always looking for the next great revelation that would solve all my problems. And I latched onto so many things in that journey. But I spent a lot of time studying. It started with like logic and science. I'd always been fascinated by science. The scientific process of coming up with an idea of how you think things work, listing out the ideas why you think you're right, and then starting to do experiments to see in what situation would this be wrong? How could I show that this is wrong? And honestly, it wasn't until humans started doing that, until they started saying, how could I be wrong instead of how could I be right, that we actually started making progress, at least technological progress and sociological progress. But I got into psychology, I got into physics, I got into spirituality, I got into religion, I studied Judeo-Christian texts, I got into various mystic texts, which I'll talk about some of the wonderful things I learned from that, whether their spiritual beliefs are true or not. I was searching for truth. I was searching for solid ground to stand on. That I could say, I can lean on this as something true. And as I explored the landscape of human knowledge to their edges, if you zoom out enough, you get to the observable universe, and there's an edge we can't see beyond. And then as you zoom in, you get to cells and molecules and atoms and atomic particles and quarks. And then you get things like quantum field theory or string theory or other things that are trying to dig in deeper, but there's an edge here. And I kept finding these edges. I was finding the edges of human knowledge. And in my head, it was like I was standing on an island, floating in an infinite void. I was standing at the edge of that island, looking out into the void, and realizing that there was no solid ground. There was no absolute principle or idea of the universe that I could lean on to understand everything. That scared me so bad. It was so scary. I learned that absolute confidence in something that was absolutely true was impossible. Now I've come to accept that. My life has gotten so much better since I've embraced the uncertainty and the constant movement and change of the universe. Instead of fighting the flow, I roll with it a lot better now. The next really important thing of where my ideas about reality conflicted with reality itself has to do with the concepts of choice and habit, or nature versus nurture. You'll hear a lot of these arguments. Free will versus destiny, agency versus determinism, choice versus habit, nature versus nurture. But really, these are a false dichotomy. Human psychology is a mix. Most of the time when people are talking about this, they're actually talking about what's called the two-system theory, which was at least advanced, if not created, by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Some people say you got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and that you are in complete control of your actions. And then other people say you have no choice, and you just have to follow your nature. You have to feel and discover who you are deep on the inside and just follow that. Both of them have these two paths to happiness and control in your life. And one of them is take control of everything, and the other one is you have control of nothing. Just roll with how you feel. Both of these are false, or at least incomplete. Our brains are a mixture. There's a huge part of our brain, the bigger part of our brain, that is doing all this hidden processing, calculating, thinking, responding, intuiting, feeling, instincts, primal emotions. I usually call that the intuitive subconscious. The other part is our rational reason, or the conscious part of our brain. It can handle a lot less information, but it's probably what we mostly think of as us. The whole thing is us. But this rational part of our brain is what we think of as us. But here's the thing. Both extremes will cause suffering. If you think you're in complete control of your actions, like I did, and you had natural urges that teenagers or humans have, and you are taught and told and believe that it is up to you and your choice to participate or feel in those things completely, that you have control over all your reactions, then if you're not choosing to avoid those things, then you are being bad, and you are consciously being a bad person. Gosh. Here's the thing about absolutism. It runs up against reality, which is always more nuanced and complicated. Frank Herbert's got a quote here. I'll summarize it. The human mind is always seeking to understand the universe through logic, but the universe is always one step beyond logic. A good metaphor for, I want to stick the universe into a box I can understand. I didn't know this at the time, but what I was going through, and still am in a way, is an activity that Descartes talks about. René Descartes, who was a philosopher hundreds of years ago, like 1600s, says, if you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things. I call this the Cartesian crisis, because I like coming up with cool names for stuff. And it's the process of questioning everything, breaking it down, starting from scratch. He came up with some interesting theories about how the universe works. He starts with, I think, therefore I am, but mine led into the Socratic realization. Woohoo! Another fancy name. This is named after Socrates. In a, probably fable, in ancient Greece, somebody went to the oracle at Delphi and said, who is the wisest person in the world? And the oracle at Delphi, which is like a priestess speaking for a god, says, Socrates. This person goes back and tells Socrates, and he's like, what the heck? I don't know anything. Why would she say, let me go talk to these wise people that live in this city? And he went around and talked to them, asked them questions about what they knew and how they knew things and where their knowledge came from and why they were so certain. And then he started to realize that they didn't actually know anything. They just were confident that they did. Or rather, they didn't actually know anything, but what they knew was incomplete or not true. And then he says, I think I know why the Oracle at Delphi called me wise. I am wise because I know that I am not wise. There's always more to learn. And when it comes to my tendency towards something absolute, I try to lean that absolutist tendency instead of one of these other principles. I point my absolutism at non-absolutism. Absolutes might be easy on the mind, but they're rarely true. Everything you know is wrong or incomplete. But here's the kicker. One reason you don't have to be afraid of uncertainty. And if you get things wrong, that's okay. You can only do your best with the knowledge you currently have. You will know more tomorrow or in the future than you know today. Why judge your past self based on the knowledge and ability that you have today? Would you want your future self judging your present self right now based on the knowledge and ability that your future self has? I mean, think about it. What else could your past self have done differently? It didn't know. And even then, even if it did know, maybe it wasn't able, or maybe it was just tired. So look at yourself right now. If you're like, okay, well, I'm going to learn, I'm going to be better. You can't summon the knowledge that your future self knows and have it right now. So quit judging yourself by it. That's what I had to learn. I used to have some things I believed in 100%. And one by one, the list of beliefs that were sitting there got smaller and smaller and smaller. Same with beliefs that I was 90% certain about, or 75, or 50. The list got smaller and smaller. And I finally had to accept that absolute certainty, at least in something true, was impossible. That even though truth cannot be held, at least capital T, truth. You can't hold truth in your head. That's like saying you can fit the whole universe in your head. You can't do it. Otherwise, your brain would be bigger than the universe. But seeking the truth or moving towards it still matters. The closer you move towards it, even if you can never get there, the closer you move towards it, the happier you'll be. The more you jive with how reality actually works will give you less suffering and more happiness. And that's what I've learned. If it's impossible to possess absolute truth, why stress about possessing it? It's funny how some of these things get stuck in a loop on. Now, can you take that uncertainty too far? You actually can. Because there's two parts to this whole thing. And there's what to believe, and there's what to do. And I was working on the what to believe because that would help me know what to do. So I got into this stage of uncertainty. And meanwhile, throughout all of this, I had been gathering notes on the nature of knowledge. It's about psychology. about how the human brain works. I didn't want to believe in something because of a trick or a quirk or some bias or shortcut that my brain was taking. Now I know that I don't have any choice but to have those things affecting my thoughts. But that's not bad. Now I come to a really important principle. This is something that I've come up with, and I call it the gauntlet of reason. Before I get into that, I should probably mention what rationality is. And at least for me, rationality is making our beliefs better represent the world, doing actions that best achieve our goals, and choosing goals that match what we value the most. Now, choosing what we value the most, that'll give us the best life. This can be pretty subjective. But really, it's about matching how the world works and doing things that actually can change how the world is. So for me, that's what rationality is. And that involves a lot of learning and understanding of the brain and how thinking works and where we get tripped up. And that's how I came up with the gauntlet of reason. Everybody has the right to believe whatever they want. But not everybody has the same chance of being right. So what this gauntlet of reason is, in a very, very oversimplified way, an idea passing through the scrutiny analysis of these principles, the hundreds of biases or shortcuts or ways that our brain leans. They are hundreds of fallacies, which are bad arguments. Marshmallows cannot fly. I cannot fly. Therefore, I am a marshmallow. Stuff like that, except way more complicated. Principles of logic and scientific reasoning and mathematics even. And if your idea or ideology can pass through that gauntlet or crucible mostly unscathed, you're in a good place. But as for me and my ideology at the time, it did not pass through unscathed. These questions of, do you believe in this because you were taught it as a child? Do you believe in this because there's a whole bunch of humans that have been teaching about it for thousands of years and just passing it forward? So that's how my notes have coalesced, but that's only one half of it. The gauntlet is the trial to prove whether your idea has avoided those problems. But in the past few years, my notes have also expounded into how do we learn effectively? How do we deal with problems? How do we brainstorm? How do we live happier lives with uncertainty? There's parts to what I've been learning. And one is all the ways that we could be wrong. And the other one is ways to help us know that we're right. Just because something survives the gauntlet of rationality doesn't mean that it's right. But it's way more likely to be right than something that doesn't. And I'm keeping some of the religious stuff purposefully vague because a very important point of this podcast is I don't want to tell people what to think. I want to help people explore how to think. Because a lot of other people out there who will gladly tell you what to think. They will tell you what they think is right. I don't want to be one of those people. In fact, I was so terrified of being one of those people that I was scared to get started. Now here's where that uncertainty kicks in. There's a lot of people out there who have a lot of influence, and not because they're more likely to be right, but because they're good at gaining social respect. That does not line up. Here's another bias at play. That does not line up with being right. The halo effect. You see somebody who's right or good in one way, and you think, hey, that person must be right and good in all these other ways. And this happens on the subconscious level. That's the hardest part of all. So much of this happens at the subconscious level. That's why I've started to lean in to all these questions. Because honestly, the answers aren't nearly as important. Questions are far more useful than answers, especially open questions. But again, because I was so scared of my lack of expertise that I thought there's not really much I can do. Maybe what I should do is I should go get a graduate degree. And I was at this point where I was going to go get a graduate degree, and I was talking to some friends about it. And I was talking to Chris about him writing me a letter of recommendation. And he's like, hey, you want to hop on a call? I'm like, oh, great. He's going to try to talk me out of it. And you know what? He did. More like he asked me questions, and I thought myself out of it. To bounce around slightly, I had this huge struggle. And I see people struggling with doing the right thing or picking something right, giving up the search, and then suffering or causing suffering because of it. And I thought, we got to learn to be less confident. Got to learn to be less arrogant. This is pointed at me. Everything I talk about is something that I have struggled with. And maybe I'm doubting myself too much, but I've probably struggled with it more than you. I don't know. Is that egotistical? See, there I go. Questioning myself again. Either way, he helped me understand that I can model good critical thinking without going and getting the degree. Again, I don't want to tell people what to think. I want to help people learn and explore how to think or how to question their thinking. But a critical part of that is when to stop asking questions and just act. And don't be afraid that you're going to ruin everything, because you're not. Most of the horrible things that could go wrong aren't going to happen. And even if they do, you're going to be okay. I know there's a lot of people who don't have the time or the money or the desire to go and get a college degree, to go study this stuff. I see a lot of people falling for foolish ideologies because they don't know how to ask questions. They don't know how to find the holes in their logic. All those biases and fallacies I was talking about, it's like a field full of pits that you're trying to cross, and you don't even know that you've fallen in the pits. You don't even know. It's hard to recognize when you're being emotionally manipulated. It's hard to know even the most common mental pitfalls that mess up your ability to make better decisions and come to better conclusions. And I got to this point where I was like, I want to help other people do the same thing. Because I look on social media and everyone is being so absolutist and so ineffective with each other. Oh, you voted for this person? That means you're an idiot and you have chosen evil on purpose. Or, oh, you think that this socioeconomic policy will work? Well, you just don't understand the real world. Gosh, none of them do. Their confidence far outweighs their evidence. And how do I know that? Because I recognize it from me. I did the same and do the same thing. Complete accuracy is impossible, and complete certainty is just a comforting lie. Now, this leans into me thinking I can save the world or something, but to pull a little bit from Frank Herbert again, from Dune, Relying upon one person to solve all your problems usually has really bad consequences for people, and Dune shows this. Don't give in to a hero. Don't give in to a leader who says, hey, I'll think for you. I'll give you the truth. Because your brain goes, woohoo! I don't have to think anymore. Booyah. We call that a win. But on the other hand, you can't rely on a single person to save everything. But on the other hand, you as an individual can't change everything. This includes me. I can't do something that will, as an individual, that will change the entire world and make everyone more reasonable, more rational. But I can help. Because that's the other part that I noticed. One drop is not the wave or the ocean. But the wave and the ocean wouldn't exist without the drop. Changes in the world are made by many people. I can't save the world by myself, but I can certainly help. Because I don't want to reach the point that I feel like some are reaching right now. That the world is burning around you. And you're sitting there like that dog in that house on that meme saying this is fine. And you're sitting there thinking, well, at least I was right. I did the right thing. Or, most importantly, I was correct. It doesn't matter if you were correct and the world is burning around you. It doesn't matter if you're right and you're failing to make the world a better place. Do what works, not what should work. Oh man, people should just change their mind when they see evidence and hear logical arguments. The amazing thing is, the person saying that doesn't even qualify. If you want to work with others, you got to learn to work with the emotions, work with the flow, work with the slow change of opinions. Don't just stick to your self-righteous absoluteness. That's talking to me. That ship is sinking. Don't go down with the sinking ship if your goal is to sail. Jump off the damn thing and head to another boat. So when it comes to this podcast, this is my other boat. Because I was pretending that my goal was to sail or to help people think better. But most of the time, I was just procrastinating, disguising it as preparation. Maybe instead of starting to see if I can help with some public outreach to help people think better, maybe I should just go get a degree. Spend another 3 or 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars and go get another degree. Every once in a while, I find some new way that I've been completely delusional. I've been so terrified to get started on certain things in my life that I have found any way to get around them. Now, this is a good, important part that is, I think I'll probably make this the end of this episode, is that you got to ask at least some questions. But then you got to start. There's no minimum required time of preparation to get started in that thing you want to do. The only way to really learn how to do something is to do it and then think about it. No amount of preparation is going to make it so that you'll do it perfectly on the first time. Because there's things that you can learn only by doing it. This has to do a lot with the other part of my life. The other major goal that I have, to publish my fiction. And I learned some of those lessons when it came to writing a novel. I've written 9 novels. And at this point, I've published 0. It's the same fear of getting my stuff out there. I would rather write an entire novel than put together a 1-page query letter to send to an agent or a publishing house telling them about my book and hoping they'll be interested. I did that for years. I was talking to a good friend of mine. He's got a PhD in psychology. First off, he advised me, don't go do it. It was rough. I told him about my debilitating fear of going public with things. You might be able to hear it in my voice. I'm trying to control it, but I'm feeling it right now. It sends me into a almost sobbing panic attack, which is wild. I did theater in high school. I've done teaching. I've done public talks at my church and other things. I've done presentations at my jobs where I've been teaching entire departments about user experience and how to make your stuff a better experience for the people using it, which involves teaching a lot of psychology and stuff like that. And I stand up there, I talk about these things, I sound totally confident. And then the second I think about doing something similar with something that I made, it scares me. And I was like, how do I not feel that fear? How do I not feel that terror? And he said, you have to keep doing it. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. And eventually that fear will go away. Which is one reason I'm doing this right now. I was tempted to not record an episode today because I would be the only one that procrastinated while doing some preparation, quotation marks. Here it is. Here it is in my stumblings, my slight tremor in my voice. Here it is. Here I am. I hope this helps you feel more comfortable with uncertainty. Feel better about not knowing things. I'm going to do my best to not think that I'm a hypocrite. Do my best to not think that I'm extending far beyond my reach when it comes to what I'm trying to do when it comes to critical thinking. Some people might call me a hypocrite because I'm going to ask everyone to look into themselves and promise that they will be happier for it. This podcast, the books on critical thinking that I'm working on, they're all about helping you think better so that you stop suffering from bashing your head against reality when reality doesn't match your head. So all these things should be used for yourself. This is for you. At least when it comes to you listening to it. At least half the reason I'm making it is for me. And for those of us with absolutist tendencies, for those of you without, lucky jerks, but for those of us with absolutist tendencies, gotta learn to enjoy the great dichotomy of reason. Seeking after truth, despite knowing that it is impossible to hold. And I promise that you'll be happier if you ask questions, pick an answer without committing absolutely to it, looking back and seeing how you can change without judging yourself, moving forward without procrastinating. You'll have a better life. Mine's getting better as I do this. If everybody could be even a little bit less certain, a little bit less absolutist, a little bit more patient with themselves and other people, then I think the world will be a better place. I think my country will be a better place. Some might think it's too late. And if they're right, at least I tried. But if they're wrong, then I'm going to be part of the solution. Thanks, friends.